Hello everyone and welcome back to my Unity development log series for Colonise. This week I'll be covering a couple of code changes to make the old code more efficient, along with some simple pathfinding from A to B for the pirate ships. First of all, I wasn't happy with the way we were accessing the list of hexes previously when checking for what was adjacent or nearby to selected objects. Previously we would get this list of adjacent hexes, or nearby once again, in the form of a vector 2, and then we would have to loop through all of the hexes to see if their positions matched the positions returned in the vector. To remedy this, I have implemented another list. I thought about changing the whole list itself to be a two-dimensional list or two-dimensional array of the objects, where the positions could be used as the XY components of the array, essentially. However, that would change some of the code where we want to access the whole list. So simply, instead, I added another list. This doesn't duplicate the objects, it just stores them in another separate list, the same way as we've done with the zones earlier in one of the previous episodes. So instead of looping through the whole list now, we just go through the list of vectors that were returned rather than the full list of hexes, and for each one access its position in the 2D array, which is just a very simple function which converts them from floats to ints. Speed things up a bit in the optimization terms, so we've been able to implement it on the show adjacent, clear adjacent. There's one in here too about finding adjacent planets here. I think there might be one other somewhere as well, but basically it should be quicker as we're not having to loop through that whole list every time we want to check what is nearby something. And there is another example of where we've used this find nearby function and then had to loop through it and ended up accessing with the 2D array instead, and it's within the pirate ship class. So I decided to make some simple pathfinding behavior. Before, the pirate ships were moving just one hex at a turn, not one hex, but up to their total per turn, and then they would find a new target hex, whereas I wanted to be able to set them a target hex that would be prominent between turns, and then each turn get closer to that target. So first of all, to find the target hex, at the minute I've just randomly set it, and it's within this fogged hexes list, which is stored in the pirate controller, and that is just a list of all the hexes they have not seen at present. So at the start of the game it gets all the hexes, and then every time a ship or something of the pirates moves, it will remove all the fogged hexes in the same way as the player does, apart from it won't be visible to the player. It's just sort of an invisible list for us to keep track of what they've seen and what they haven't. So as long as there are still fogged hexes left, it'll randomly find one and start moving towards it. So I decided to implement the move towards function step by step. So rather than if, say, the pirate ship has 3 moves doing them all in one go, it does each move individually between individual hexes. So the first step is it finds nearby, and this is a while loop, so while the ship still has moves left or it's not at its target, keep going through this. So once it's reached its target, if it still has moves left, it won't continue moving until the next turn. Currently there still needs to be things added for this. For example, I'll get here later, but if the target is blocked, or if the next hex to move to is blocked by another ship, it will just stop moving currently. That still needs to be implemented in full. But basically, we get a list of all the hexes nearby, or adjacent in this instance, to the current ship that we're about to move, and then we check each one to see which is closest to the target hex. If, let's say, hex number 5 is currently closest, and it has the same distance as hex number 6 will end up being the one that's chosen. However, there shouldn't ever be 2 with the same distance, due to the way a hexagonal grid is formed. Once we've found the closest hex to our target, we then just access it in the array and move to it. I've just commented these out so I can show you in the scene viewer that the ship is actually moving, but usually these are commented in, so it would move if it's visible to the player, or just jump if not, and save time. But over in the editor now, I've started this game and took in a turn so that the Scuttler has spawned. At the minute I've just set actions per turn for the player to 0 so we can test this. And if we look in the pirate ship component of the scuttler, we can see that its current target hex, which has been randomly determined, is this one up here. So then if I hit the next turn button, we should see that the scuttler begins moving towards it. And it will keep doing this every turn until it reaches the target hex, which I think is just a bit further. So I'll hit that one more time. And I think it reached it there. So the current target hex is 0, but it will find a new one on this next turn. And it starts moving towards it. So this one is all the way down here. I'm afraid that's all for this week, folks. I'm sorry it's been quite a code-heavy development log. I've not had as much time to work on stuff recently due to a couple of job interviews and stuff that I've been preparing for, which may be the case still for the next few weeks, but hopefully soon I'll have more time to get back to the game. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, comment and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or comment or anything you want to tell me, please get at me on Twitter at Darth_Jar Jar, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.